Now, the one other thing that we watched is something that I surprised you with.
Yes.
I was like, close your eyes. I'm going to put something on the TV and let's watch it. And it is something that I think both of us have brought up in the What to Watch. So every Thursday, in case you're listening to this on Spotify, on YouTube, we bring out a video where we essentially highlight things that you can watch racing related this upcoming weekend.
Yes.
And the one thing that I had seen it before and I just love the idea of it so much. So we watched the FIA Euro Trucking Euro Truck Championship. So essentially, you could imagine it. It's like just like a truck, but like not like a F-150 truck.
Yeah,
like a truck that is hauling like big things, and they just essentially have the front of it without anything attached to it, and those people go on the track and they're racing. And I think they do 3 races per weekend or 4. I think it's 3 races. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you had mentioned it was 3 races a weekend, and they do 8 laps.
So 8 laps usually per race. The last race this weekend was only 5. I think it was due to the weather conditions. I don't know if maybe something else happened. I just saw it. But we watched the first race, and it was very, very interesting because it's obviously something that we had never watched before.
Yes.
Part of me is very obsessed with it because it's also like it's so interesting because you have these niche I'll just call it niche sporting championship or like racing championships, but they've been going on for many years. So for example, there's one woman on the grid. Her name is Steffi Halm, and she's been part of that since 2011.
That's incredible.
That's a long time to be doing this.
Also, we did see, which was nice, they showed the grid because we did have a red flag.
Yeah.
And they restarted the race. And then they went through the grid again with pictures, which is really nice. And speaking of driving until your older age, it was quite a mixed grid. I feel like there was several people in, I'm assuming their 30s. There was people in their 40s, but then also people in their 50s, potentially 60s.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what age. I'm just going based off a look.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry if I'm misjudging people. That the age range was quite wide.
Yes.
Which was really interesting.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about, I think, racing in general. Like, you can not necessarily like F1 or like MotoGP, but you can race into your like later stages, you know. Like I think D Station Racing, which I think they should be racing in Le Mans, they have a driver last year in the car that was like 70, and like he was doing good, you know. It's not like he was in the team for whatever reason, you know. He was competitive, so it is really awesome to see that. So talking about the race itself, so they do a rolling start, which I think makes sense.
Makes 100%.
Makes sense.
I would be curious
to see
a standing start, but it does make sense that
because obviously they're super heavy, and then I think in general a lot of the motorsports or cars like that, they do rolling starts anyways.
Yeah. They were racing at the Slovakia ring. So one lap was about 5.922 kilometers. Yeah,
roughly. So quite long.
Yeah, and it took them around 2 minutes and 50 seconds, maybe a little bit less for the top driver. So that was really interesting. Hence only 8 laps. I mean, it was I feel like how long was the race in total?
I would say it's like about 20 minutes.
Yeah. So it was, I mean, clearly we could calculate.
Yeah, if it's like 8 laps, a little bit over 2, that's 16 plus some change, right?
Yeah.
So around like 18 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, so I think that's right. So that was it was really interesting. I was going into it when you surprised me because I honestly had no clue that was kind of what's going to come on. I was curious to see how physical, quote unquote, the racing would be.
Because I know like GT racing can be elbows out.
I know the MX5 Cup was racing this weekend too, which we enjoy as well, and they can be quite physical, like little bumper cars. So I was curious to see how those big boys and gals, how they do it. So it was really interesting, and I also thought what was interesting was they have 2 different categories racing at the same time. They have the titanium category, which was the top category, and then they have the chrome category. At this point, I don't know exactly what the big differences are.
Yeah, I don't know if it's kind of like platinum and bronze and gold and silver drivers. I don't know if that's a thing.
If there's a vehicle difference, also maybe. I honestly, I didn't look into it because I just wanted to go in and just enjoy the.
It's also
the
like
racing.
we watched it and now we're recording it.
Yes, literally.
So,
but it was still entertaining, and it was for free on YouTube.
For free on YouTube, and the cool thing is the broadcast is actually in German and in English.
Yeah.
So whichever one you prefer, you can watch. I actually put it on for us in German because I just wanted to check it out. I am curious to see how it would be in English. But I thought the guy did a really good job because he is commentating by himself, which I think can be a little bit tricky.
Yes, but he also knew a lot about the drivers, their history, and just in general about the teams and stuff like that. We did also have a paddock interview in a way because there was like this one incident which we thought, yes.
Yeah, you go ahead, because I thought the camera angle is probably a little bit...
Yeah, so from how we had seen it, and of course they don't have all the cameras that F1 and MotoGP and stuff have, but from our angle, it looked like, that looked quite rough, that somebody was purposely...
Or not purposely,
but like hitting somebody in a way that was maybe avoidable, and that kind of ruined that other person's race. So they had interviewed somebody from their team, which ended up being a German team. The majority of the drivers on the grid were Germans, so it was interesting that happened in German, but then the interviewer then also translated it in English, so for the English broadcast,
which I think is awesome because I've seen them do that for the Asia Road Racing Championship, which is a motorcycle championship, and I've watched races for them live before because the races are usually also like 10 to 20 minutes, and it is usually the races are at a time like around like 10 p.m. or something our time, so it's something I could easily watch. And a lot of that is like in Thai, and but then they do the interviews in English and they translate it. But I think it's really awesome that they're trying to make this as accessible for as many people as possible. And English is obviously a language that is probably just where we found common ground. It's not the most spoken language, but many different countries or people in many different countries know that language. So it was really awesome. But I will say, I think based on the replay, and I thought about this, is I think the car was already kind of turned and he was kind of blocking the I think he went a little bit too fast and he lost the car or the truck essentially. And then I think the other guy didn't have anywhere else to go, because we have to keep in mind these are not like F1 cars that are super agile or anything like that. This is a truck that weighs probably more than my car, which is 2.5 tons. So I thought probably they looked at it, and maybe they also have a dash cam that we didn't have access to. So the other guy didn't get penalized, even though from the angle that we looked at it looked quite egregious.
Yes, but even a commentator was saying like he trusts what the racing stewards and stuff say, because they've, I guess, have made good calls in the past. Okay,
which is nice.
Which is nice that there's trust. In them,
because us and the FIA, we're not the best of friends. But I will also say sometimes I feel bad because I'm known that I hate most sporting organizations, right? I don't like the
IOC.
I hate them all, right? I think the thing about it is it's like I talk shit about them, but it's specific people that are really ruining it, right?
Yes.
The people that are making millions of dollars of selling out and really just fucking it up for everyone, where there's so many people who are part of these organizations who are truly dedicated to these sports, right?
That is very true.
Who love this, and they're just in the background, all the people who, I can't imagine that if you're...
Are you getting teary-eyed?
No. But like those people that work in their like race directors and stuff like that, it's not like they're making millions of dollars, right? They're just doing this because they love motorsport, right? So sometimes I feel bad when I'm like, fuck the FIA, but it's like fuck specific people, not you guys who are out there just doing your job.
No, for sure. That makes sense. But it was the European truck championship. It was a fun watch.
Yeah, because it's 8 laps, also once again less than 20 minutes, easy to watch. I'm very interested in watching it again because I thought the race was good, but I'm sure there are races that are a little bit more interesting. because we also didn't see that many overtakes, even though overtakes did happen.
Yeah, but it was still some really nice battling, and also the commentator really explained well why this battle is so interesting and important for like their standings and yada yada yada. So that was really, really cool, and I loved that you showed it to me this weekend, because one of the things that we love, or that's one of the reasons for this channel, is also because we want to explore so many different racing types. And I think we did it a lot last year.
Yeah.
And then this year we've fallen into, I mean,
just watching a lot of the big stuff.
Exactly, because they are good and they happen so much. So it's hard to also consume other racing at times. So it's nice, especially also because it's such a small bite-sized version.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was perfect.
Yeah. Especially, last year we watched like Andros, we watched, which unfortunately was of course the last season for that one.
But then last year also we watched for the first time Supercross.
We watched
for the first time MotoGP.
Dakar.
For the first time Dakar. So there was a lot of new ones that we were introduced, and now that we're fans of.
Yeah.
So now it's good that you introduced us to something else that we can be a fan of.
Yes.
So that was good.
Yeah, that was really, really good. So, is there anything else you wanted to bring up?
Well, I just want to bring up some news.
I had one thing that I wanted to just bring up briefly, and other than that, I don't really have anything.
Okay, well, you go first, because my news is just about something for the channel that we talked about.
Okay.
Share, yes.
So one thing I wanted to bring up again, because we obviously had last weekend, we had F1 and we had the Max Verstappen incident. So he ended up getting 3 penalty points for that. So now he is 1 penalty point away from receiving a race ban. I'm uncertain when the next penalty point drops off for him. I don't think that's anytime soon.
I don't think so either.
I think it's closer towards the end of the year.
Yes.
If I remembered correctly. I think it's also so interesting. Like, it's so wild that you have the defending champion who has 11 penalty points, right? And you have like someone like, of course, like he's my favorite, but like Lewis, he doesn't have a single point, right? Yeah. And it's so interesting, like how different people are. And Lewis is not the only one who has 0 points. And I also think it's not unusual for someone to have maybe like 1 or 2.
No, of course, but 11 points
is quite egregious.
A lot.
And one thing that I also thought was really interesting, because I remember seeing it, like Lando was kind of poking fun at the incident in his post-race interview, because none of the drivers really wanted to say something about it. And I understand why people ask, and I understand why they don't want to say anything, because in the end, you don't want to get into it. It's also not your cup of tea. But I also, part of me also, because I'm obviously rooting more for Oscar than I am rooting for Lando. And there was also this shift. I felt like it was super cool, quote unquote, or it became popular online at least, to hate on Lando this year. Where last year he was the favorite. It just shows how fickle the internet is. Yes. Like, you can be loved one moment and you can be hated the next.
100%.
But it's also like, part of me also probably thought that he thought to himself, was like, it's like, and maybe Lewis more than anyone else was probably like, this is what the bullshit I've been dealing with, right? Because last year people were always like, on Lando, it's like, you just have to, you have to stand your ground. But it's like, it's hard to stand your ground when you have more to lose in a battle. And it's really, Max has that reputation. It's like, if you don't yield, we'll crash, right? Yeah. And that was happened when he was battling with Lewis, and Lewis eventually just was like, okay, then let's crash, But it's just like, it's insane that that's the thing, because we see so much really, really hard and good, respectful racing. It's so unfortunate that that's what it is. And I get that he had a lapse of like judgment. Like if you're like, you're so angry, but the thing about it is, like, Yuki had to go see a therapist about his outbursts. It is maybe, and like, going through a therapist is not a bad thing, right?
Not at all.
A lot of athletes pro athletes go to a therapist because it will help them, you know. And I think maybe that is something to be considered, because if you can regulate your emotions healthy, you know, because things will happen that upset you.
Of course.
That is just life,
and
unfortunately.
It's high stakes.
Exactly.
For them.
And I get it. You're racing at 200 miles an hour, right?
Plus, yeah.
And then bullshit happens. Of course, you're going to get angry. You're realizing you're falling back. Your team put you out on the hard tires and what the fuck, you know?
Yeah.
But what I also didn't really like about it is that in his post-race interview, he also said, because he was asked, did you crash purposely? And then he was like, does it even matter?
Yes,
and it does matter.
It does matter.
It makes a huge difference, you know?
Yeah, I think like what you said is one of the key things for me. There's lots of hard racing. We see it across all different types of racing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it can get really, really close, and it can be very aggressive, but there's still a line of purposely crashing into somebody or purposely not getting out of the way. That makes a big difference. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And this thing is also like, I know the FIA always says like, we don't look at the outcome, we look at what happened. But it's like he got lucky that both of them finished a race. Like, for George, the worst case scenario would have been like, he would have not been able to finish a race. One of them, he would have picked up a puncture, or he would have had a hole in his side pod and stuff like that. Like, this was the best case and worst case scenario. And worst case scenario is really someone purposely crashing into you. This is the worst case you can have, you know? And I remembered that Max actually had done this in 2020. He won 2021, right? And in 2022 at the end, and I think one of the last races of the year was Interlago, where there was also already a huge situation with him and Checo, where he didn't want to let Checo pass or something like that. But then he purposely crashed into Lewis, and he said at the end, yeah, I did, even though Lewis and him weren't even racing against each other. And it's this thing where it's like,
that should mean, I mean, we had talked about it a little bit afterwards, and I think Nico Rosberg also had said it, that should be grounds of disqualification. If you do it, or when you do it on purpose, that's grounds for qualification. He should have gotten the black flag, or is it, and then just his race should have been over. He should have gotten 0 points, because he ended up still getting 1 point. It's a lot less than he would have gotten otherwise, but still, that's 1 point more than he should have gotten.
And it is, it's, and then someone else would have gotten that point, right?
No, exactly,
but it's just this thing where it's like this needs to be handled better, dude.
It
if
does.
Someone even like admit, and if you look at the footage, right, you can see that it looks like he's letting George by, right? Then, and I like George did everything right, and then he doesn't turn. Like, he doesn't turn, dude. He's not even trying to turn, where he's trying to turn and he locks up. Then, you know, you can't do anything about that, right? But I don't know, dude. I just think sometimes the FIA is so lenient on stuff like this.
But
and
then
it's not
also
okay.
The question is, and I don't know if it's just conspiracy or my paranoia, if they're more, I don't think so, but are they more lenient for certain drivers over other drivers?
This is like Pandora's box, right?
No, of course.
It is really, sometimes it does feel like that. I think it feels less like it now that you have a group of people in charge of the race, instead of just one singular race director, which I thought was also very interesting that it took until 2022 for this to happen. When like robbery happened, right? That's insane. But it's just, I don't know. It's just not right to me. You know, it's not right to me. I know that, I think last year you had I don't know if it was an F4 or if it was an F3, where one of the drivers did something insane like this too. Like, he purposely like drove into someone, and he didn't get any penalty for this. I think this was in qualifying or practice or something like that. He got mad at another driver. But it's like, I don't care if this guy is 17, right? I don't care if this guy is 24. It's like, if you purposely race into someone, right? Drive into someone. Like, if you want to do this, then go home and play GTA, you know? Or play Wreckfest or whatever the fuck, right? Or do it. But that's not okay, dude. That's not okay. That's also endangering people, you know?
It's reckless.
It is reckless.
And especially in that sport, it is incredibly dangerous, potentially. But even without the danger factor, it is, no.
Yeah, sorry, I'm smiling because I have this.
Like,
I have this weird notion that I think actually F1 cars are really safe.
Uh-huh.
Because I do think that on a first impact crash, like the F1 car is super safe because the way that they're built now, like back in the day, don't. It's like a steel coffin, right?
A death trap, yeah.
Yeah, it really is. But now, like the first impact, I'm saying first impact because the people who have died, that always died on the second impact, right? And I get it. You cannot probably build a car. We don't have the technology to build it around that. And I mean, and then again, Grosjean was just like the luckiest bastard in the world.
Know. But also, I mean, we've had some really scary incidences over the
Zhou
last couple
Guan Yu, right?
Guan Yu. We had Lance Stroll also going into the wall and coming back onto the track.
And then Piastri, honestly, reaction like a cat.
Yeah, I mean, it had some really scary incidences. You're right that the cars are incredibly safe right now, but it's
but you don't know. Someone could, like, or George or even Max could have still gotten hurt. Like, what is it? Danny broke his arm or wrist last year because someone hit him and then the steering wheel snapped, right?
But so it's also the people around it. All the people on the sides, the audience, they're all potentially at risk because people have also died, like audience members. And
it happens more in rally. Last year we had a really terrible incident. I think was it in India or was it in Singapore, where like I think like 10 people died.
I don't remember. Yeah, I remember that now that you're saying it, I don't remember where it was, but it doesn't just affect you.
Yeah.
You know, and then also in this, it also affects your team.
Yeah.
It also, I mean, it affects a lot of people, and it's so incredibly selfish to do that, and it's just wrong, and you should have been disqualified for it.
Sorry, and I saw again, I didn't click on that either. I saw another quote unquote clickbait title where like Christian Horner apparently found someone else again to blame for the incident with Max. I didn't click on it, so I don't know how true that is. And part of me, like, we both are not Christian Horner fans because he does seem like a little bit like a Bond villain.
Yeah.
Just is, you know, it's just true. But I get that he is in a position where he will always defend Max, right? Yeah. I get it. I don't think Toto or Fred or if anyone else would have done it, they would have not been like, this driver fucking sucks. I can't believe he did it. He's not going to do it. He's in his corner, of course. And of course, you're going to be also in the corner of the guy who's the one winning the championships for you, right? Yes. Because let's be real, Yuki's not in no position to do it. So if anyone will win the championship this year in a Red Bull or in the last couple of years, it was Max, right? Yeah. But yeah, I don't want to talk about it even longer because we've already talked about it so much. But I wanted to bring that up real quick as a little update.
No, that makes sense because we did talk about it off the pod. But yeah, it was a good thing to bring up. And then I think the last thing that we just wanted to share, Le Mans is of course coming up this upcoming weekend, a big famous 24-hour race in France, which we always look forward to. Last year we streamed it. We had a watch party / hangout. Unfortunately, things have changed in life. So at this moment, we unfortunately won't be able to do the full or a hangout live stream. We will still be watching it.
Me more so than you because it's really you that's unfortunately impacted by. I mean, it's not like something bad happens. It's just work.
It's like work and life is a little bit more complicated, and so that's why we.
And you just don't have a job where you're able to just take days off.
Yes.
Like I have a regular corporate job, in quote unquote. So it's just a little bit unfortunate. We're still going to watch it and we're going to talk about it on the pod.
Yes, for sure.
But this year, we're unfortunately not going to be able to do the hang. Next year, we're going to try for it. Or we can try for the 24-hour Nürburgring race.
Well, we'll see.
It's kind of a work because you work in an industry where it's like you can't just ask for a day off.
Yeah, so it's things have changed a little bit, so it's a little bit of a bummer. But yeah, we will still be.
What industry do you work in? You're a hacker. You always hack on Mondays.
But so we will still be watching it. If you guys want to chat with us about it on our socials,
you know what I'll do?
YouTube.
I'll make the commitment on Blue Sky. I might be like live skying.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, so then because we will still be watching it. You, like you said, more than I will. It's just we can't commit to a 24-hour live stream this year round, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But if you were thinking about hanging out with us, we appreciate you.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll have you on for the next time. But yeah, we will still do our regular podcast next week, which will include the Le Mans race as well as the F1 race, because the guys will be racing in Canada next weekend. So will be lots and lots to talk about next weekend. Hopefully we'll have 2 very exciting races. Hopefully no 8-hour safety car race. But yes, so
I am hoping for a little bit of rain. I'm not even gonna lie, because I think the conditions help, but like it was so much rain, and I understand. Part of me kind of understands why you did it that way, because you're like, I love that they're like, listen, we're gonna red flag that, or we're gonna not red flag. We're just going to do safety car procedure because it's not safe for people to race. And I 100% agree this. We don't want to endanger someone. No. The sport itself is already dangerous enough. And a lot of people don't finish Le Mans anyways, right? Yes. It happens naturally. And then it sometimes is, however, like this tradition almost gets in the way of things, because they're like, we're not going to red flag the race because Le Mans has never been red flagged. So it's kind of this like catch-22. Yeah. But there's no way that's going to happen 2 years in a row. Yes.
No. Only one way to find out.
I don't allow it. If not, I'm going to call friends and be like, fix your weather.
All right. Well, we'll see if you have to make that phone call next week.
Yeah. 1-800-FRIENDS. Hello? Please turn off the water.
So we'll see. But thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. Let us know what your thoughts were. If you watched the MotoGP race, let us know. If you watched the Euro Truck Championship, let us know. Or maybe you're interested in watching it now. Check it out on YouTube. It's free to watch. And then we'll be back on Thursday on YouTube with our What to Watch. And then the following Monday and extra days on YouTube for our podcast episodes.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.